Hello everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Nier Replicant. Last time we left off, we finished the game with ending A. And now we have quite a few more endings to get, so without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in, I guess. So things are going to be slightly different this time, and we'll see why. And most of this is likely going to be getting skipped over. I also think in this playthrough, I'm not going to do a lot of side quests. I think I'll save those for the next playthrough.
Whenever I interacted with Kaine, I was reminded about something from my past. Maybe my mind has been confusing her with my sister this whole time. Anyway...
Okay, it makes sense we'd cut to Kaine's thing. Kaine's dreams discrimination. Sound of rain filled the village. The steep cliffs that surrounded the area magnified sound, causing even the slightest drizzle to rattle like a thunderstorm. Thin wisps of smoke streamed from huts as the villagers huddled in their homes and waited out the rain. A single child, however, had braved the downpour, and was now wandering slowly toward the wooden, hawk-shaped weather vane at the center of town. The wanderer reached the vane, which had existed for as long as any could remember, and stared. The child's face was simultaneously delicate and fierce, like a teacup that had survived a shipwreck. Those traits combined with pale white skin to give the face an almost sexless quality. If the beak turns east, I go home. If it stays west, then I... The child blinked. Rain slowly dripped down the young one's short hair and began its long descent to the ground. Come on. Come on. The child felt a slight breeze and watched as the weather vane slowly creaked to life. Spinning this way and that for a moment, it finally settled with its beak pointing firmly towards the east. East? Really? Before the vane could move again, a jagged rock came spinning and tumbling through the air, striking home against the child's head. The force of the blow dropped the child to the ground as a hail of stones began to fall all around. Oh no, they found me. A heartbreaking smile crept across the child's face as the stones continued their assault. Through the rain, the sound of multiple footsteps grew louder before a voice rang out. Yoo-hoo, Kaine! The voice belonged to Daimo, worst of all the bullies in the area. As Kaine struggled to stand, a final stone came skittering through the mud and bounced against her foot. Blood oozed from a cut above her eye and blurred her vision, but she could make out the shapes of Daimo and his usual gang of idiots. The boy seemed taken aback for a moment by Kaine's seeming indifference to the blood dripping from her face, but quickly regained his bravado. What's up, freak? You like the rain? You like getting all wet? Or did you finally decide to run away from home? Though she knew it was futile, Kaine turned to leave. Before she could get more than a few steps, the other children scrambled to surround her, cruelty burning in their eyes. Kaine knew they were not the only eyes on her. The tormentor's parents watched from the safety of their homes. She was attuned to this sensation. It was one she had experienced many times before. Man, the people that just watch bullies do something horrible like this... And just like are sitting there, as someone that did this myself when I was in high school, you are also complicit in this shit. Anybody that just, well, I didn't sit there and watch like when something like this happened, but I just mean like when someone gets bullied in general. The people that just sit by and don't do anything or don't stand up, you're complicit as well, because, geez, man, people need to stand up and stop this shit, especially for young children. It's rough being bullied. As someone that was bullied. While some villagers simply turned a blind eye to the actions of their children, many encouraged it openly. Yeah, and if you encourage it, fuck you. In society ruled by superstition and fear, Kaine was something to be hated and, if possible, destroyed. I didn't say you could leave, freak. Daimo's words chewed at her like a worm through an apple. He can't hurt me, she lied to herself. Be strong, be brave. He can't hurt me, he can't hurt me, he can't hurt. Oh look, the little freak's gonna cry. What's wrong? Are you sad that everyone hates you and wants you dead? Kaine prayed for the rain to flood down and carry her away from a world that seemed to have no place for her. This is such a sad thing to see. Especially with how many people go through these exact things today. Whether they're like trans, gay, bi, honestly, there's a lot of things you can be and have people act this way towards you. It's really, really messed up and shows how sad a place the world is that people can't be more accepting. And especially parents don't know how to raise their damn children. But if there were gods, they chose to ignore her. As Daimo crept ever closer, the clouds began to thin and the rain slowed. Even the weather hates me. I'm useless, a failure. I wish Daimo's rock had taken my head off. Kaine couldn't meet Daimo's leering gaze. She lowered her eyes and stared at the muddy ground below. The bully moved forward until he was inches away. She could smell the scent of old meat on his breath. The boy grabbed Kaine's face with thick fingers and yanked it upward. She tried to turn away, but he forced her gaze back and jammed his thumb against her eyelid to pry it open. The cat's freaking out. Show me. No. Did you just say no? Daimo grinned evilly. You don't say no to me. No one says no to me. Even taking his attention from Kaine, he called to his cohorts. Come on, guys, let's give the freak what she deserves. As soon as Daimo finished, kicks and blows began to rain down upon Kaine. What do you mean by show me? Daimo paused, still grinning, as Kaine curled into a ball and tried to make the pain stop. I don't get you, freak. What you acting like a girl for, huh? Everyone knows what you really are. Kaine ignored the question, choosing instead to stare at the weather vane, and continued to point east, as if supremely confident about the future it had chosen for her. Go home? Yeah, that's a funny joke for someone with dead parents and no home to go to. Freak, chanted the children. Freak, freak, freak. Kaine closed her eyes and listened to the rain, waiting for the pain to start again. As the clutching hands of the village children closed around her, she bent her mind to the sound of the rain, letting it become her world entire. The rain fell, but the pain never came. Only when the laughter of her tormentors turned to terrified cries did she dare open a single blood-caked eye. Kaine was shocked to see Daimo sprawled on the ground, holding his head and screaming in pain. She could see blood welling from spaces between his fat, twisted fingers. Oh my god, he's crying. He's actually crying. Deprived of their leader, the other children glanced back and forth between themselves, as if waiting for someone to step forward and take charge. Yeah, this is how this sort of shit always goes. So many of the kids just do it because they don't have any stake in it. Like, they just follow behind a leader that's willing to do the really messed up things, and if they get in trouble, then everybody else, you know, they're not gonna get in trouble. They didn't do anything. But they still follow behind them because they're sick, twisted little shits. Kids can be awful. Deprived of their leader, the other children glanced back and forth between themselves as if waiting for someone to step forward and take charge. When no savior emerged, they began an uneasy shuffle away from Kaine. But the young girl was the least of their concerns. Instead, their attention was rapt on the ancient woman standing a few feet away. After struggling for breath for a moment, she finally spoke in a voice thick with rage. Hurts like a bitch, don't it? Now I suggest you scatter before I throw another one. And if any of you little bastards ever touch my Kaine again, I'll do worse than throw a rock. You can count on it. The old woman crouched down and gently touched the hand Daimo was using to cover the wound. Before he could think the progress, she ground her palm into the wound and twisted back and forth. Ow, he screamed, leaping to his feet. Stop it, what are you doing? Quit whining. Ain't no one ever died from a scratch. You hit me with a rock, you stupid bitch, a big one. That thing could have killed me. The old woman shrugged. Death is the best cure for stupid. Daimo's face twisted with rage at her words. Locking his eyes on Kaine, he took a step backward and spat on the ground. Get out, leave this village, no one wants you here, either of you. Seeing the old woman grab another stone, Daimo and his companions turned tail and ran. As they fled, the old woman grabbed her side and barked out a single laugh. Ha! Look at the fat boy go. Guess he's healthy enough to run from a fight. Woman's smile faded as she turned her attention to Kaine. Kneeling down, she removed her shawl and placed it around the young girl's shoulders. then produced a cloth from the folds of her dress and began blotting at the blood on her forehead. "Oh, Kaine," she said. "Why didn't you fight back? You're stronger than that lot." Words of her grandmother stung Kaine, and she turned away. "Don't be nice to me," she said. "I don't deserve it. Nothing matters anymore." Her tears, held in check for so long, finally began to fall on the muddy ground below. "Everyone hates me. They think I cause bad things to happen. They think I'm a freak. I wish I was dead." God, this is rough. I forgot how fucking rough this was. As Kaine's tears turned to sobs, she felt her grandmother's hands on her shoulders. Despite her advanced age and diminutive size, she was a woman of surprising strength, and Kaine found herself unable to turn away. "Don't talk like that, girl. It's a river wide and deep that flows between the realms of this world and the next, and it grants no mercy to any that attempt the crossing. You got a duty to fight until your last breath. Understand?" The old woman tightened her grip and tried to still the tremor in her voice. "You know the pain of losing someone close to you, Kaine. You know because you survived it." As the words hit home, Kaine was struck by the force of her love for the old woman. As a young child, she didn't even know of her grandmother, but when her parents died, this woman quietly accepted her as her own. Grandma, as Kaine called her, was cunning, vulgar, and quick to violence, and their first few years together had not been easy. So yeah, now we see where Kaine got her, her potty mouth, as it were. But with each year that passed, Kaine and her grandmother had grown closer. However, it was only now, sitting in the mud with tears and blood caking her face, that Kaine truly understood the depths of her affection. Here was a woman who had seen hard times, who had seen death, who had fought through all these things and somehow emerged on the other side. If anyone could understand Kaine's pain and loneliness, it was her. "Do I make you sick, Grandma?" "Course not, don't be an ass." Kaine drew her grandmother's moth-eaten shawl around her body and shuddered. "But my body, it's not normal. If I was normal, then Mom and Dad wouldn't—" "Hush," interrupted Grandma. "I'll not hear another word of this nonsense. You're my granddaughter, and I love you, and if folks have a problem with that, they can just go to hell." With that, the old woman reached out and placed a wreath of dried flowers in Kaine's hair. The skill it took to bend the flowers without breaking the stems or losing a single petal was remarkable, and the beauty of it made Kaine want to cry all over again. "Oh my gosh, these are lunar tears! Grandma, you made this for me?" Lunar tears were legendary flowers. Most people could live their entire lives without ever seeing one. And yet her grandmother had somehow collected a dozen or more. Kaine reached up and touched the wreath as if she couldn't believe it was real. Where did you find these?" "Just stumbled on them while I was out doing the shopping." The old woman turned away as she spoke, leading Kaine to suspect that the search had been more difficult than she was leading on. The pains she took to construct the ornament, let alone track down the flowers used in its construction, made Kaine's heart hurt. She reached up and gently adjusted the wreath, admiring the way it felt between her fingers. "Didn't quite turn out right," said her grandma as she squinted at it. "These old hands have trouble with delicate work. I'm sure it looks good on a pretty girl like you." Kaine blushed and turned away. You think I'm pretty?" "Course you are. What a fool thing to say." Thank you, Grandma." Her grandmother smiled. "We're gonna be fine, you and me," she said. "Long as we got each other, we'll be just fine." Kaine took her grandmother's hand in hers, and the two of them struggled to their feet. As they began the long walk home, Kaine gripped the hand with all her might, as if trying to stop smoke from drifting away on the wind. The rain had stopped. Kaine stood beneath the weather vane, watching it spin in lazy circles, no longer caring about the direction it faced when it stopped. "I don't need to escape. I have a home now. Grandma loves me, and that's enough. Even if it's us against the world." Kaine let her gaze drift up past the vane and into the cloudy sky. The last faint hints of a rainbow were slowly fading. As she turned and headed for home, the light scattered into a million particles and vanished, seemingly taken away on the breeze. Kaine's dreams daily life. So yeah, we're getting a bunch of these sections that basically explain Kaine's backstory for us. One thing I do want to note about Kaine here is based off of that description, some would maybe think that Kaine's trans, but it's apparently been confirmed that Kaine is intersex, which basically means that she has both, and in an interview with Yoko Taro, I think the reason Yoko Taro gave for this was it was a bug in the replicant system. So the original human Kaine was not intersex, but this Kaine is. But regardless, I think it's super cool to have an intersex character in your game and show what LGBT people go through, even if it is incredibly dark. But I hope Kaine can get a happy ending, because so often for LGBT characters in video games, it's all just sad, 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 sad. So here's hoping we can have some happy. In the distance, Kaine heard the steady sounds of an axe striking wood. The noise had a purposeful quality to it, as if she was hearing a master woodsman go about his work. The firewood being produced, however, was as far from a work of art as could be. Pieces of every shape and size were being flung about a barren yard with wild abandon. Anyone trying to stack such wood would probably die of frustration before the job was through. Stupid piece of shit axe! Kaine's grandmother flailed away with the axe, filling the air with both splinters of wood and words that would make the most hardened sailor blush. Grandma, called Kaine. That you, Kaine, yelled the old woman, taking her eyes off the wood for a moment. Don't get too close, or I might take your goddamn foot off by mistake. She brought the axe down on the piece of wood, sending chips flying in every direction. One spun past close enough for her to hear the whistle, at which point she decided to step back. Once she'd scuttled to a safe distance, she cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, Grandma, do you need help? I can get you water or lunch or a new axe or something. The axe, poised to strike another wobbly blow, paused in midair. The old woman considered her granddaughter's offer for a moment and smiled. Tell you what, since I'm doing such a piss-poor job of chopping, why don't you come here and take over so I can go get the water? Shade's been restless lately. I don't want you running into one of them bastards. Relinquishing the axe, her grandmother picked up a long pole with wooden buckets on either end. Gathering water was by far the more difficult of the two jobs, but Kaine knew better than to complain. Once Grandma's mind was set, there was no changing it. Kaine did her best to help with chores, but Grandma took every task that required travel to the village. Though she had a long list of plausible excuses, Kaine knew the real reason. She didn't want her grandmother to be taunted and harassed by the villagers. Once Kaine moved in, Grandma decided to take up residence a good distance from the area. Out of sight, out of mind seemed to be the best policy when it came to the villagers and her granddaughter, and rare were the days when any but the two of them could be found on the rocky acre of land they called home. Kaine enjoyed the solitude, but harbored a secret resentment that her grandmother was forced to spend her golden years in such a place. After watching her grandmother leave, Kaine turned her attention to the task at hand. She had never chopped wood before in her life, and soon discovered why the old woman hated the chore. Swing after swing, the axe produced only a tiny crack in the wood. When she finally managed to connect with a solid stroke, the tool embedded itself in the log and refused to budge. Frustrated, Kaine swung the axe around her head and threw it, log and all, across the yard. Damn it, crap. She suddenly understood the joy her grandmother felt in a good curse. Happier now, she picked up the axe, forced it from the wood, and resumed chopping. She had a natural skill with the blade, but the task was challenging, and blisters soon began to form on her small pink hands. This is tough, and my logs are all weird sizes. Spitting on her palms and ignoring the pain, Kaine redoubled her efforts. Just as she was developing a rhythm, Grandma returned from the village. Setting down her buckets with a small sigh, she took one look at the logs and coughed out a wheezy laugh. Pretty clumsy, girl. You better practice if you... Her grandmother suddenly collapsed to her knees, causing one of the buckets to wobble precariously. Eyes wide, Kaine dropped the axe and ran to her grandmother's side. Grandma! The old woman shook her head and pointed a trembling finger at the bucket. Get the bucket. Can't let it spill. Kaine steadied the bucket with a foot as she knelt by her grandmother. A small bit of water sloshed over the side made a new home in the hem of her dress, but Kaine didn't notice. Grandma? Grandma, what's happening? Crazed with panic, she grabbed her grandmother by the shoulders and shook. After a moment, the woman lifted her arms and batted Kaine away. Stop that! Just stop, she cried, breathing heavily. It ain't like I'm dying. Just tired from the trip's all. Kaine desperately wanted to believe her, but one look at the old woman's shaking hands and worn face told her more than words ever could. Her grandmother had lived a long, hard life, and it seemed the bill was finally coming due. The time when her grandmother watched over Kaine was ending, sooner than either of them had feared. The positions would be reversed. The next morning, Kaine came to the side of her grandmother's bed and took her wrinkled hand. "Grandma, you're sick and you need medicine. I'm going to the village." The old woman shook her head and tried to rise, but Kaine gently pushed her down. "It's all right," she said. "I'll be fine." Her grandmother fixed her with a gaze that could melt steel. After what seemed like an eternity, she finally lowered her eyes and sighed. "Well, I don't like it, goddammit. But I guess I should quit being so stubborn and let you grow up." The old woman watched as Kaine strapped on her boots and made her way down the road to the village. Hours later, as an unseen sun made its way across a dark and rainy sky, she was still watching. Kaine moved at a brisk pace, checking her pockets every few minutes to make sure the money her grandmother gave her was still there. Every noise caused her to spin on her heels, making sure she wasn't being stalked by a shade, or worse, Daimo and his gang. But she encountered neither tormentors nor shades, and finally found herself at the entrance of the village. Few adults she could see glanced sideways at her, then muttered to each other behind raised hands before slinking away into the shadows. Her heart racing, Kaine took a series of rapid, shallow breaths and tried to calm herself. Boy, these adults in the area are assholes. God, people are horrible. "I have to prove myself. I have to help Grandma. I have to be strong." She chanted those words to herself over and over as she slowly made her way. Finally, her eyes settled on a rotund older woman who was angrily waving her arms in the air and telling anyone who would listen exactly what she thought of Kaine's presence. "Hey lady," said Kaine with a bravado she did not feel. "Where's the apothecary?" The woman's flabby cheeks shook in bewildered anger. "How dare this thing speak to me," they seemed to say, but Kaine saw that her eyes held a different emotion. Fear. "Yeah, we're both scared, lady. Trust me on this one." "Which way?" The woman pointed at a small building to her right before hitching up her dress and stumbling off in the other direction. Kaine cringed, expecting a stone to come flying from the assembled crowd, but none came. Her mind was filled with a strange sense of pride as she made her way to the apothecary, but the new emotion had little time to take root. For as soon as she opened the door, she noticed a familiar customer at the counter. It was Daimo, clearly been here on some kind of family errand because his gang of followers was nowhere to be found. "Oh my god," he sputtered. What are you doing here, freak?" The insult was delivered without force, and Kaine happily ignored it. Stretching on tiptoes to see over the counter, she asked the shopkeeper for the medication. "Ha!" barked Daimo. "That old bitch finally keel over? Go to hell, Daimo." The boy's eyes grew so wide they seemed ready to fall out of his head. Before he could let fly a comeback, or worse, a punch, the apothecary told him to knock it off before he kicked him out of the store. Daimo slunk out of the shop, cursing Kaine under his breath. Once he was gone, she allowed herself to breathe once more, taking a brief tour of the shop while the owner prepared her medication. Countless tidy bottles filled the cramped store, each with a label written in some indecipherable language. An ocean of aromas assaulted her nose, creating a scent that was exotic but not altogether unpleasant. Seeing such a variety of supplies gave Kaine a sense of peace. Surely in a world so vast, there would be a place that she could call home. On the far wall behind the counter rested a portrait of a stunning young girl. The picture had once contained bright, vibrant colors, but time had worked its cruel magic, and they were beginning to fade. The beauty of the work, however, remained undiminished. "You like that picture?" Kaine turned to find the apothecary with a small vial of medicine in his hand. His eyes were gentle but sad, and they seemed to stare through her and into nothing as he spoke. "That's my daughter. I sketched it when she was just a little girl. She's been dead a long time now." Kaine didn't know how to respond. She just stared at the portrait and tried to come up with the right words. "Pictures are wonderful things," continued the shopkeeper. "They let the ones closest to you live on forever." He shook his head slightly, then looked down at Kaine and smiled, handing her the medicine. He reached into his sizable green apron and produced a handful of old wax crayons. "Well, at least you're nice. You should have these. There's no one left that I wish to draw." Kaine took an instinctive step back, causing the shopkeeper's face to darken. "Yes, I've heard the rumors about you," he said. "It's a small village and word travels quickly. Between you and me, I'm not sure which of them to believe, but I also don't think they matter much. I know your grandmother, Kali, and I think the way she was driven out of this town is just deplorable." "Grandma's name is Kali?" thought Kaine suddenly. She was still mulling this new fact over in her mind as she reached out and gently took the crayons from the apothecary's hands. "Your grandmother is an old friend of mine," he said as Kaine scooted away again, "and I owe her much. I I wager she would like it if you drew a picture of her. Yes, I think she would like that very much. Kaine murmured a quiet agreement, but inside, her heart was bursting. Never before had a villager treated her with anything but complete contempt. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible step, but it was a step nonetheless, and with enough tiny steps, she might one day discover the rest of the world. This also gives us context on the why Kaine doesn't like to go inside places. Which is a bit unfortunate, but we can understand based off of her trauma. But it seems like she finally got what she wanted. Like, the people in Nier's village were like, no, we don't want you here. You and Emil, you're freaks. We don't want you here. But Facade was always disappointed when Kaine didn't come in. Like, they were always like, no, please come in. Which is funny that the people with like 5 billion rules are the people that are less prejudiced than anyone else. They're actually cool about it, and they're like, yeah, no, Kaine, come in. You're awesome. And I wish there was a bit more about Kaine actually being happy to come into Facade, because it's like the one place she's accepted that's an actual town. It would have been a nice little detail if Facade was like the one place, which, I mean, she comes in the gates, I guess, but she doesn't actually walk around the town. But it's just a nice little detail, and I'm happy that there's at least one place. Okay. When Kaine returned home, she found her grandmother asleep in her bed. Her feet were blackened and raw, even bleeding a bit in places, leading Kaine to think that she had been pacing around the room until exhaustion finally caught up with her. She placed the medicine by her grandmother's pillow and turned to leave, but found the old woman's hands clasped around her arm. "Back already, are you?" asked her grandmother with a yawn. "Come here, let me have a look at you." Grandma sat up and examined Kaine from head to toe. Finally satisfied that nothing terrible had befallen her grandchild, she leaned back and allowed herself to relax. "Well, how was it? Those bastards give you any trouble?" "It was kind of fun," said Kaine with a small smile. "Oh, seriously, it was." "Fun, eh?" asked her grandmother in a voice which implied she believed anything but. "Uh-huh, so anytime you need me to run an errand, just let me know." As she spoke, Kaine removed the crayons from her pocket. After a brief explanation of their source, she informed her grandmother that she was going to sketch her portrait. "Portrait of me? Ridiculous. No one wants to stare at a wrinkled old crone." "But Grandma, it'll make you live forever." "Horse shit," said her grandmother, throwing back the sheet from her bed. "Living forever would just piss me off. Now put those crayons away and help with dinner." Kaine would not relent, and in the end, Grandma forced herself leaning against the wall of their house as if posing for a master artist. Found herself leaning against the wall of their house as if posing for a master artist. Kaine took up the crayons, eyed her subject carefully, and set to work. Just as her grandmother was about to nod off, Kaine finished the piece. After staring at it for a bit, she released it from her grip and let it slowly drift to the floor. "It's terrible. It doesn't look like you at all." "I'm sorry, Grandma. I thought these crayons would, you know, make drawing easy or something." The old woman's eyes narrowed at her granddaughter's disappointment. "Let me be the judge of that," she said, ignoring the pain in her back and reaching for the paper. The sketch could have been a person's face. It also could have been a boulder, a lump of clay, or an incredibly misshapen loaf of bread, all rendered in a chaotic array of colors. The old woman stared at the picture for a long time, then slowly wheezed out a laugh. "Oh, Kaine," she said between laughter. "You truly are my blood. You're as clumsy as me and I love it. But, hush, I won't hear any more bull about how ugly you think it is. It came from the heart and I'll treasure it always." True to her word, the old woman gave the picture a place of honor above the kitchen table. In the days that followed, Kaine would often catch her staring at the portrait with a strange smile on her face. An action she interpreted as silent, mocking laughter. A week later, Kaine could stand it no more and asked her grandmother to take the artwork down. "Posh," said the old woman. "I'll take this down when they roll me in my shroud." She pondered this for a bit, then turned to Kaine and dropped to one knee. "Listen to me, girl. Seeing this picture makes me happy in a way I've never felt before. And it makes me want to go on, so that someday you can feel the same happiness." It was a moment that burned itself in Kaine's memory, a perfect blend of pride and love and joy that came together to form a lifelong remembrance. She swore to never forget this moment, to never forget the old woman who had made her place in the world possible. Time moves on, people and memories move in and out of life like ghosts passing through a hall. But this moment will be different, Kaine swore, because I'll remember it forever. Forever. Kaine's dreams. Separation. Kaine listened to the sound of crackling firewood and stared at the black object on her plate. She'd been pushing it around the wooden disc for a good 10 minutes, ignoring the bemused stare of her grandmother. Finally, she summoned her courage and gave the object a brief sniff. A sharp, bitter scent flew up her nostrils and made its home there, causing her face to twist with disgust. Grandma, I can't believe you want me to eat a bug. The old woman threw some wood under the cooking pot and snorted. It's no bug, you fool. It's a berry. Why the hell would I be feeding you bugs? Yeah, well, it sure looks like a bug, said Kaine, and I think it's burnt or something, because it smells terrible. That Kaine held up her nose and threw the berry in her mouth, chewing as little as possible. Oh yeah, that's terrible, all right. Why, you little brat, laughed the old woman. Look at the sass on you. You've been spending too much time with me, and that's a fact. 5 years had passed since the moment when Kaine's grandmother saved her from the bullies. As is so often the way with two stubborn people, their relationship had grown in fits and starts, but moved forward all the same. Meals that used to be somber affairs were now filled with laughter and hurled abuse in equal measure. Well, at least Kaine got 5 years with her, because I imagine the reason this one's called separation is something's gonna happen. Kaine could not remember a time when she had been happier. As the years went by, Kaine started to shoulder more and more of the daily responsibilities. Her grandmother's legs grew weaker by the day, and she could no longer do many of the chores she used to take for granted. And so this morning found Kaine lacing up her work boots with a breakfast of burned berry rolling through her belly. Where are you going today? Asked Grandma suddenly. Kaine looked up surprised. The old woman rarely asked for specifics anymore. Well, I was going to check out the kelma trees and see if they were ripe. I thought we could make some jam or something. Oh, and I'm going to pick up some flagstones. So I need to take the wheelbarrow. Flagstones? What in the hell for? Kaine stared at her grandmother, then held out an arm and swept it around their home. Constructed mostly of cloth, rope, and rubble. The old place sagged like a boxer in the final round. Grandma, a dying cat could shoot through this house. We're going to build a stone wall so we have some protection. The old woman laughed, exposing her toothless grin to the world. God damn, girl, if a bunch of thieves want to ransack this old place, let them come. We got nothing worth stealing anyway. I'm not worried about thieves, I'm worried about shades. People saw one west of the village yesterday. The old woman tilted her head and stared at her granddaughter. Well, shoot. I don't know why you have to do it today. We can worry about it some other. Grandma, no. If I don't go to the kelma trees, we won't eat tonight. You know that. A confused expression passed across the old woman's face, and for a moment she was a small child lost to the carnival. Yes, she said after a bit. Yes, of course. You're right. I'm sorry, Kaine. Lately it seems my mind is... She didn't finish this thought, instead walking over to her nightstand and gently taking the wreath of lunar tears from the drawer. The flower's petals had aged to a brilliant whiteness, and Kaine thought it was more beautiful now than the first day she received it. You're gonna be a true woman soon, Grandma said as she placed the flowers in the girl's hair. So that means less chatter about shades and building defensive walls, and more talk about how beautiful you've become. Annoyed, Kaine reached up to remove the garland, but the look on her grandmother's face stopped her hand. You're a beautiful thing, said the old woman. And there ain't another like you in all the world. I'm very proud of you. Okay, Grandma, that's enough goddamn compliments for one day. Such a mouth on you. Where'd that come from? Gee, I wonder. I'll teach you to sass me, girl, yelled Grandma. Suddenly she lurched forward and grabbed Kaine by the ears, pulling her around the room with a crazed grin on her face. Grandma, yelled Kaine in a quaking voice. Grandma, stop it, what the hell? The old woman stared at her and blinked, then slowly held her wrinkled hands out as if this was the first time she had ever seen them. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Sorry, girl, sometimes my mind just... Kaine thought the look on her grandmother's face was the most heartbreaking thing she had ever seen. Listen, she began. Maybe I should stay home after all. No, I won't have you stay here to keep an eye on an old codger like me. You go get your fruit and your wall and whatnot, I'll be fine. When you come back, I'll have a nice grasshopper dinner waiting for you. Kaine rolled her eyes, then kissed her grandmother on the forehead and made ready to depart, trying desperately to ignore the worry that was gnawing at the walls of her heart. Yeah, I can see why you would be worried. This seems like it's leading in a sort of bad direction. Man, can't Kaine just catch a break? Come on. Kaine could feel the old woman's eyes watching her as she moved down the path. Don't turn around, she told herself. But in the end, temptation was too great. She spun on her heel for one final look and saw a small, bent woman standing in front of a ramshackle hut with a sad expression on her face. Gods, she looks so old now. It's like the wind could reach down and just carry her away. Kaine worried about her grandmother all day, causing her work to suffer. What little fruit she could collect was tossed carelessly into the wheelbarrow, and she only found a couple of stones before losing interest in the project. Finally, as dusk approached, she decided to call it a day. Cursing herself for the lack of focus, Kaine pushed the nearly empty wheelbarrow back down the path. As she crested the final hill, she suddenly froze in place. The wheelbarrow fell from her fingers and collapsed on the side, sending a few pieces of wrinkled brown fruit rolling back down the hill. Her gaze was transfixed by a thick black cloud that hovered just ahead. Tracing its path with a finger, Kaine felt her stomach knot in on itself. No, oh gods, no. Her grandmother's house was ablaze, the flames licking up as if trying to touch the sky itself. Grandma? Grandma! Kaine ran then, faster than she had ever moved in her life. Once she tripped on a stone and was sent sprawling into the rocky ground, but she leapt to her feet and continued running, unmindful of the blood that spilled from her wounded hands and knees. As she got closer and closer, Kaine's mind began to race in time with her footfalls. It's too dark. It's too dark, not just fire. Can't be fire, too much smoke. Gotta save her, gotta save her. She burst into the front yard and came to a sudden halt, her worst suspicions confirmed. Smoke from the fire was mingling with the thick, inky blackness of an enormous shade. The massive creature supported itself on 3 twisted feet, and achieved balance through means of a large armored tail. Scales, horns, and claws spouted from its body in a random, chaotic pattern, giving it the appearance of a lizard designed by some insane god. Seeing Kaine, it let out a roar and flicked its tail, sending small whirlwinds spinning around the yard. For a moment, the creature retreated into a shimmering, inky blackness, as if her mind was unable to comprehend that such a thing could actually exist. But then the smell hit her, a blend of rotted meat and excrement, and the horror became real once more. The creature bellowed again, and this time Kaine responded with a scream of her own. "All right, you bastard," she thought as her scream echoed off the high cliffs around them. "It's you or me, let's go." The shade eyed Kaine with bemused interest, then began looking from her to the house and back again, as if urging her to look at the destruction it had so gleefully wrought. With dread building in her heart, Kaine glanced toward the house. Through the smoke and flames, she spotted a small figure struggling to escape the ruins. "Grandma!" The sound of her voice, the old woman began waving frantically. "She's alive," thought Kaine. "Alive!" Kaine's legs sprang to life as she raced across the yard towards the flaming wreckage of the house. Before she could advance more than a few steps, the shade opened its mouth and let out a roar powerful enough to uproot trees and send them flying. The blast sent Kaine tumbling through the air before smashing her against the rocky earth. Stars danced in front of her eyes as she tried to remember how her legs worked. Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up now! As Kaine struggled to her feet, the shade stomped towards the house and pinned her grandmother to the ground with the tip of a claw. The old woman struggled to move the claw from her stomach, but she might as well have been pushing a mountain. She coughed briefly, sending a small spray of blood into the air, then collapsed to the ground, her energy spent. Kaine lurched to her feet, only to fall back to the earth with a gasp. Her ankles were on fire. One or both of them were surely broken. Ignoring the pain that screamed through her body, she began dragging herself across the ground, leaving a drunken trail of dust and blood in her wake. "Grandma, hold on. Just a little longer." Her grandmother's face was turning blue, her eyes rolling back until only the whites were exposed. Kaine pulled herself across the ground with maddening slowness, the distance seeming to increase with every second that passed. The shade glanced between the two women and flicked out its tongue, its giant mouth turning up at the corners. Short, panting breaths belched from somewhere deep inside its core. Bastard, laughing at us. She had no idea how such a mindless creature could experience emotion. There could be no doubt the Shade was taking joy in their suffering. "Yeah, I see your plan." Shade moved its claw slightly, allowing Grandma to breathe again. It was clearly keeping her alive, only to snuff out her life when Kaine was close enough to touch her. "I'm gonna kill this bastard." Summoning all her strength, Kaine rose to her feet. There was a sickening snap from her right ankle as the foot twisted backward. When she forced it from her mind, it began to hobble toward the monster. Holding a small knife from the pouch at her waist, she leapt on the foot that pinned her grandmother and plunged the weapon deep. "Give her back," she screamed. "Give her back to me!" It was like stabbing a rock. After a few swipes, the knife broke at the hilt with a dull snap. Shade panted laughter again, then raised its tail and sent it rushing through the air towards the young girl that was latched to its foot. Kaine never had a chance. The tail struck her square in the chest and sent her crashing into the burning wreckage of the home. As she lay on the ground with blood pouring from multiple wounds, a small, weak voice spoke up. Kaine? Kaine's vision blurred, but she forced herself to focus on the sound. Finally, her eyes cleared enough for her to make out her grandmother's hands reaching out to her through the smoke. Grandma? Kaine, you gotta run. You can't best this one. Kaine grabbed the hands and held on with all her strength. Grandma, come on, we have to go. The old woman coughed loudly. One of her hands, slick with blood, slipped from Kaine's grasp and thumped to the ground below. Grandma, no, no! I said run, goddammit. You have to live. You have to get through. The thought would stay forever unfinished. Before she could say another word, the shade's clawed foot descended, smashing through the remains of the roof and down upon the shattered figure of the old woman. Blood oozed from gaps in the creature's toes as the terrible putrid smell assaulted Kaine's nose once again. She stared at the foot, dumbfounded, convinced that what she was seeing could not possibly be real. When the creature finally lifted its appendage, all that remained underneath was a twisted, unrecognizable mass of rubble and red. Her grandmother was gone. Kaine blinked, trying to feel the hands which had been in hers just a moment before. For a fleeting instant, she could remember the warmth of that embrace, the trembling of the fingers, but then the sensation drifted away on the breeze and was gone. Memories flashed through Kaine's mind, one after the other, faster and faster, until they became a meaningless jangle of noise. Kaine screamed then, a thunderous sound that echoed off the cliffs and seemed to roll away forever. Shade eased forward, black ichor pouring from its mouth and dissolving to smoke on the ground below. The earth shook with every step as it crept toward its prey. Kaine's body slowly rose as if controlled by a mad puppet master. Her arms and legs were bent at impossible angles, her head lolled dangerously to one side, yet somehow she managed to stand. Staring at the shade, her eyes began to glow with a deep red fire. The creature, so confident just moments before, took a slow, hesitant step backwards, trying to discern if this broken human could possibly pose a threat. Kaine seized the moment. Laughing like a madwoman, she leapt into the air and plunged the shattered hilt of her knife deep into the leg of the shade. The shade shook Kaine off like a fly, sending her crashing to the earth once again. Her chest rose and fell slowly, as if a great weight were resting on it. Moist sounds of pain echoed through her mind. Something warm and thick oozed from her ears. Is that blood? I think it is. I think I'm bleeding to death. No, can't die. Grandma told me to live. Deep inside Kaine's mind, something finally broke. The sound, the pain, the smoke, and flames, all of it faded away until all that remained was a single incantation repeated over and over again. Kill it, 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 kill it. Kill it, kill it. Okay, that's a lot of kill it's. Kill it now! As the spark that was Kaine slowly began to flicker and die, she felt her desire to kill and her desire to live blend into one. The distance between heartbeats grew longer and longer and longer.
The beast approaches. Oh, I know.
Seemed to be insinuating there that Kaine was reliving those dreams the entire time she was stuck, and while some of them were nice, God, that must have been awful. Alright, weird phallic monster, let's go. Let's just murder all these limbs.
What anger this creature must have. None had even survived these past 5 years.
I'm not gonna let this happen again. It dies today. My sword seemed lighter.
It's not the blade, but the skill of the user. Strike it down.
And that's a dead penis shade. There we go. I think it's a dead penis shade at least. There we go. I killed it too fast. It was like kind of stuck. But yeah, a lot of this is going to be the same, but we're going to get some changes like what we just saw with Kaine there. So Kaine's dreams encounter. Gently, weakly, softly. The shade, sure that his tormentor was dead, turned and stomped off towards the horizon, stopping along the way to bellow one final roar. Couldn't kill it. Shamed beyond imagining, Kaine tried to turn her head to the side, but only succeeded in coughing up a huge gout of blood. It was getting difficult to see, and only after a moment of fierce concentration did she realize that her left eye was gone. Laughing to herself, she turned her remaining eye to the ruins of her home and noticed a ragged stump of arm resting a few feet away. Yeah, that's mine, she thought with a mad giggle. This is gonna make clapping a real bitch. What a thing to say. Huh, cried a sudden voice from the depths of her mind. Finally gonna die, are ya? Well, you had it coming. Go to hell, Daimo. What was I calling it? Daimo? Yeah. She thought of the unseen assailant. Go to hell before I pluck out your eyes and feed him to a dog. The voice of her childhood terror evaporated into smoke, only to be replaced by another, more recent voice. Hold still, said the apothecary, materializing from the ruins like a ghost. I want to draw you, that way you can live forever. No, stop. Don't want to live forever. I want to die right here. I see, he said quietly. Well, if that's what you want. Spectral shopkeeper fluttered in and out of existence for a moment, then produced a piece of paper and sketched quickly. After a few seconds, he turned the page to Kaine and smiled. Since you rejected my offer, I decided to draw someone else. It was a picture of her grandmother, real as life. Kaine opened her mouth to thank the man, but stopped as the picture began to blacken in the middle. Before she could say anything, dozens of multi-legged insects began to swarm across the image, tearing at it with sharpened pincers. Stop! No, don't hurt that picture! Kaine reached out with her remaining arm and waved futilely at the air. To her surprise, the insects fell off the picture into the ground below, where they vanished into tiny black tendrils of smoke. Relieved, Kaine turned her good eye back to the picture, only to open her mouth in a silent scream. The sketch now showed her grandmother as she truly was, a smashed, unrecognizable lump of nothing. The apothecary smiled, then broke into a jolly dance. See that? He cried as he danced his jig. It's perfect now. She looks just like you. Ha-cha-cha-cha. I look like that? Oh God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. Drowning in despair, Kaine laid her head back in the mud and smoke of her ruined house and waited for the end to come. But just before she let everything go, an unfamiliar voice began whispering in her ear. Ain't you got a wish, sunshine? The voice was vulgar and fierce at the same time, as if insanity had somehow found a way to take form. Kaine wanted to scream as the voice crawled under her skin, but her lungs refused to work. You know, a wish, like a prayer or something. Why don't you get on your knees and start praying to heaven? Please, invisible man in the sky, save me, save me. Ha ha ha. Kaine finally resorted to shouting at the voice with her mind. I don't make wishes, they don't come true for me. I'm a curse, a freak. I should be left to die. The other voice boomed in her ears. Bwahaha, oh God, you are the best. Kaine's glanced down and saw a black, shiny substance oozing from her legs. She tried to brush it away, but her remaining arm would no longer respond. The substance slowly crept around her feet, and then began moving up toward the rest of her body. Is this death? Is this what it's like? Or is my mind just losing itself? She could feel the slime oozing upward, feel the hot, searing pain it left in its wake. Whatever else might be happening, she was still alive, and this was real. Come on, said the voice. Let it go. Kaine tried to ignore the voice and concentrate on the pain, but the newcomer would have none of it. Don't ignore me, sunshine. You're ready to give up, ready to die, so why not just let me have it? Have what? Your body! Come on, give it to me, give it to me. I want to stand on the ground, feel the rain, taste the wind. The voice paused as if licking its lips. When it resumed, it was filled with mad, unabated joy. Then I want to take your hands and use them to choke the goddamn life out of people. I want to tear out their throats and bathe in the blood, just like before. In response, Kaine shifted her head and vomited. The warmth of it crept down her front and mingled with the pain of the encroaching black ooze. Are you a shade? Haha, yeah, maybe, what of it? The slime reached her face, crept up past her nose, and slowly oozed into the socket of her missing eye. The moment it touched her brain, Kaine was struck by the most powerful sensation she'd ever felt in her life. It was ecstasy. She wanted to scream with delight, but all she could manage was a small, whispered moan. Feels good, don't it? Asked the voice with a chuckle. Yeah, what can I say? I know how to please the ladies. Now give me that body. Come on, give me the body and I'll give you more of this feeling. It's a fair trade. Black lump began to protrude from Kaine's side. As she watched, it grew longer and thicker, eventually taking the form of her missing arm. I can see better, she thought. My eye must be growing back too. Slime reached up to envelop the rest of her face, but she managed to brush it away. Stop, she whispered, marveling at how she regained her voice. Stop. Black Ooze hesitated, if considering this request, then quickly shimmered down her body before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Ah, what the hell, Sunshine, screamed the voice. We had a deal. I thought you wanted to die. Grandma said, can't die yet. A brief image of her grandmother, bloodied and broken, flashed before her eyes. She saw the shade that had killed her and heard its mocking laughter, then closed her eyes and forced the image from her mind. Her whole body was quaking with rage. When she opened her eyes again, they burned bright red. That thing took my grandmother. I have to kill it before I die. Kaine glanced down and saw a mysterious pattern. The pattern of the shades burn itself into her left arm. Well, I'll be damned, said the voice cheerfully. Look at that, Sunshine. I think you and me are going to be good friends now. Kaine stared intently at her arm. The more emotional she felt, the more the letter seemed ready to puncture her skin and begin infecting the rest of her body. The arm clearly had a will of its own now. Stop. Gotta stop. Holding her left arm in her right, Kaine took a deep breath and tried to calm herself. Come on, don't fight it, pleaded the voice. Hate's my favorite dish, and I'm hungry. Let it go. Feel the anger. Burn with the fire of revenge. Thirst for blood. Then go out there and... Shut up and get the hell out of my body. Your body? Oh, that's rich, Sunshine. Real rich. Look, why don't you just up and die so I can have this body all to myself? What do you say? I bet those buddies of yours in the area would love to see you dead. Kaine grabbed a nearby shard of glass and tried to saw off the shade-infected portion of her side. Before she could, her darkened left arm grabbed her right wrist, crushing it. Kaine screamed and dropped the shard as the sound of bone crunching on bone filled the air. Ha ha ha, stupid idiot girl, you're possessed now, Sunshine, there ain't no going back. The voice laughed again, a loud, long wail that seemed to go on without end. Possessed, whispered Kaine. Yeah, possessed, you and me? You got what you might call a timeshare arrangement. Remember how folks used to think you were a freak? Well now, wait till they get a load of you now. Kaine looked up, tears in her eyes. The sky seemed smaller somehow, darker. Is this because of that shade? Is this how they see the world? So, listen, heard the voice. I know this whole possession thing seems a bit sudden, but it ain't all bad. There's plenty in it for you, too. I'm a very powerful creature, Sunshine. Now that power belongs to you. You got enemies, people you want to kill? I can make it happen. That little fat kid who kept picking on you? That big old shade that squashed your granny? We'll wrap them up in their own assholes. No more abuse for you, Sunshine. No more pain. Wait, said Kaine. You're a shade. Why would you help me kill another shade? What, you think I'm some kind of racist? Some killing snob? I don't give a good goddamn who you murder, honey pants. I just want to drink from the well. Kaine considered this as she struggled to her feet, the power of the shades coursing through her. Smoke from her house was drifting away with the wind, and she enjoyed the way the cool evening breeze felt on her new left arm. After a long pause, the voice spoke up again. Oh, how about it? You and me? We can have some good times together. Look, I'll even take care of this bloody part if you don't want... Fuck off, asshole. Muttered Kaine. I'll handle the killing. Ha ha ha, screamed the voice. Look at you go. Oh, Sunshine, we're gonna have so much fun. Listen, my name's Tyron, and if you ever need me, I'll just be hanging out in this piece of meat you call a heart. Now get to it. The more you kill, the more your heart turns rotten and sour, and I like rotten and sour. Kaine found herself nodding at the voice. Yeah, she said. Yeah, I think this can work. I'm gonna find that shade and I'm gonna strangle it with its own guts. When I'm done, I'm gonna do the same to you, Tyron. Count on it. Ah, laughed Tyron. I'm shit bigger than you, so good luck with that. Oh, and hey, one more thing. Right now, you and me are sharing this body, but if you ever run out of hate, you ever, you know, go soft, then I'm gonna take over everything. So keep on killing, Sunshine, and watch your back. Voice grew fainter and gradually faded away, fading to somewhere deep inside Kaine herself. Kaine waited until she was sure the voice was gone and waved her new left arm around a few times. Feels perfectly normal, she thought. Feels like... mine. Desperately, she began poking and prodding at the new limb, determined to find something wrong with it. She didn't want it to feel normal. That would mean the creature inside her had already won. I am not a shade. I'm Kaine. Repeating this mantra in her mind, she slowly began digging through the rubble of her house. being careful to ignore a certain red-stained spot in the corner. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of heartbreaking work, she found what she was looking for. It was the wreath of lunar tears. Though it had been through hell and back, the garland's petals were as bright as ever. Kaine started to place it in her hair, then slowly lowered the wreath and stared at it. Sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry. But I don't deserve to wear this anymore. Corrupted. I'm possessed, corrupted, a freak. And this time, I don't think there's any going back. Holding the flowers to her heart, Kaine fell to the ground and sobbed. As night gradually lightened to dawn and the people of the area rose to their daily lives, she remained in that position, as if tears could somehow wash away the horror that now infected her world. So...
Stay alive! Stay alive!
Grandma.
Kaine, you gotta live! You gotta come back to us!
Oh, hey. Emil, you were the one calling me, weren't you?
You still recognize me?
Of course. I knew you right away.
Thank you, Kaine.
Welcome back, Kaine.
Wow, you grew up. So, how long has it been?
5 years.
Shit. That's a long time.
Here's that part of that cutscene that we missed because of lawnmowers.
Any luck with Yonah?
We are still no closer to finding her. We need a way to locate the Shadow Lord.
By the way, this is for you.
Is that a lunar tear?
It's not as good as your grandmother's, but I tried.
No, it's great. Thank you.
Well, there we go.
Waking from her long, petrified sleep. Emil's unflagging kindness. Our reunion was a happy one, and we let it wash over us like rain. That is, until Devila and Popola had to go and ruin it all.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You can't be serious!
It's funny because there's totally new context for that scene, because when we saw it originally, we were like, oh, it's Devila and Popola ruined it all because they wouldn't allow, you know, Kaine and Emil into the town, but they actually ruined it all because they're massive assholes that are working for the Shadow Lord. Well, I guess they're not massive assholes now that we've understood they're basically just the original humans. They're tools of the original humans that just want the original humans to get their bodies back, but you can't ignore the fact that the replicants are now people of their own.
Please, try to understand. People are tired and scared, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry you have to bear the brunt of that.
I think we can skip most of this now.
This is crap, and you...
It's okay. We can sleep outside.
No one's sleeping out. You and Kaine saved this...
People are afraid of us. As long as you're right,
I'm used to sleeping.
But...
we'll
Sorry.
Yeah, we can skip all of that. We've seen it before. Like I said, some of the stuff here we're gonna be skipping.
What is the matter?
Kaine always sleeps outside. Never even occurred. Damn it.
We should turn in.
Yep, Kaine does always sleep outside. For, a lot of reasons.
I didn't get much sleep that night. For the first time in my life, I hated Devila. For the first time in my life, I doubted Popola. But those feelings are pointless in the end. They said and did what they did for the sake of the village. To protect it from the horror of the Shades. Really, how can I blame Devila and Popola? In the end, I'm just as bad.
Once again, new context for that.
Because I never once stopped to think about Kaine and Emil's situation myself.
Because Devila and Popola are basically just trying to help do the same thing you were doing in the last playthrough. Hoo boy. Alright, we got a lot to think about. We found out why Kaine's part Shade.
I should apologize to Kaine and Emil, but what good would that even do?
I got a fire going, Kaine.
Wait, is that...
I think this is a new scene, so...
Weird, aren't they? I'm so happy to get to talk to you again, Kaine.
Yeah, me too.
I tried everything I could think of to save you, you know. I polished you with a special cloth. I poured warm water over you.
Wait, you poured water on me?
Yeah, but it didn't really do much except make you all shiny.
Hey, Emil. Thanks for saving me.
I guess you noticed how I look different now.
I'm sorry, Emil. I'm sorry for all of it.
Well, I mean, this new form isn't all bad, you know?
Yeah, I can fly.
At least I can look at you when we talk, right? Hey, so why don't you tell me something about yourself?
I'm not very interesting. Sorry.
Come on, I just want to know you better. Please?
Fine. This all happened when I was a kid. Before the whole shade possession thing. My body is... different. And when the villagers found out about it, they started treating me like a freak. But one person, my grandmother, accepted me just as I was. No matter how bad things got. She gave me the strength to keep going.
She's really special to you, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, hey! That gives me an idea. Since we cured your petrification, we should start looking for a way to cure your possession in my body. I know we can do it if we all work together. Heck, it'll probably be super easy.
Let me guess. More warm water?
Okay, can we just forget I told you about that?
These two wholesome friends of mine. That's such a nice scene. I always loved the little scene with those two. You told me a story about a bedtime about the other husband and matching red bags. Said they fight all the time, but also get along great. Yeah.
Sleep well?
Sure.
And yet your red eyes don't be so...
I need to go see...
Alright. And there we go. Now we're back in to the game proper. And we can do all the stuff that entails. So, what interesting thing, what is this?
What might that be?
It's Mom's diary.
I have not heard you speak much about your mother.
She got the Black Scrawl and died when I was little.
My apologies for bringing it up.
It's all right. I can barely remember her face anymore. This is the only thing I have left of her. Reading it helps remind me of when we were still a family.
I see.
But the final entries get a little... strange.
In what way?
Well, here, take a look.
Okay, this is the DLC, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure this is the DLC. This is how you get those extra 3 weapons.
Say that. Can you not hear me?
Huh! Oh my god,
Why
really?
are you standing about like a slack-jawed ninny?
Sorry. Felt like I was dreaming or something.
Sleeping on one's feet is quite the talent indeed. Come now, There's the door.
Right. Let's go.
Oh my god! It's Papa Nier! So this is the character you play as in Gestalt, where Nier is Kaine's dad instead of, her brother. Wait, it's Kaine, Jesus. Yonah. So Nier is Yonah's dad instead of Yonah's brother. I said Kaine, sorry. It's been a very Kaine-centric episode. Wow, this is so cool that they put this in here. I heard that there was something for people that had played Gestalt that they put in. Oh wow, they got the voice acting and everything. Cool. This is neat. This is neat. I like this. They updated the model. Proceed beyond this point and you will be unable to save until the battle is over. No. Let's leave. Let's leave. Yes, leave this area. We can come back here later. This is something that we're definitely gonna do, I think. Because that's super, super cool. So, but yeah, that's the DLC that I talked about. That's how we get the other 3 weapons that I'm missing, so I think we'll probably try and do that, or at least experience it a little bit, because it is neat.
My word.
Something wrong?
I feel as if I've just awoken from a most unpleasant dream.
I know what you mean. That happens to me whenever I read it.
I can't believe they got Papa Nier in. That's awesome. That's so cool. Alright, well, yeah, we'll check that out, maybe next time, or something. But yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and end this episode off here, but one thing I did want to talk about was, Tyron, the shade that possessed, Kaine. Also, I'm pretty sure the shade that killed Kaine's mom is the giant lizard shade that we fight in the area. I think. The one with balls on its chin that we have to attack or whatever. But Tyron, it seems like he's like a serial killer, or was when he was a human, because he's like, I just like murder. So, I think Kaine's possessed by a serial killer. In shade form, which is unfortunate, but fortunate for her, I guess, because she got her arm back, so. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Nier Replicant, and I'll see you next time for some more.